I guess this kind of things surface when you're 2-0 up than 2-0 down, but you know, Stefanos went to change, and so I had some spare time, and I'm sorry. I don't know if she's around, but I'm sorry if I scared her. It was probably not that great of a joke, I guess. But
it was a great joke. She laughed.
Made me a bit more relaxed on the court, I guess. You know, just had a little fun.
She was laughing. It was a good moment for her as well.
Picture this: a locker room, cameras rolling, two of the greatest athletes on the planet sitting across from each other, about to reveal something most fans never get to hear. On one side, Novak Djokovic, 24 Grand Slam titles, a man who has spent 2 decades mastering his own mind under the most suffocating pressure imaginable. On the other, LeBron James, for championships, a player who has spent 20 years redefining what it means to dominate a sport emotionally as much as physically. This wasn't a press conference. This wasn't a scripted interview. This was the shop, the space where athletes drop the polished answers and get real. And what unfolded between these two icons exposed something raw. The brutal, invisible difference between fighting alone and fighting as one. It starts just days after heartbreak. Djokovic has just walked off center court at Wimbledon, defeated in the semifinals by Jannik Sinner, the young gun who keeps standing between him and history. The loss stings. But instead of retreating, Djokovic does something unexpected. He shows up at Fanatics Fest in New York City, surrounded by legends, Messi, Brady, Durant, like some surreal gathering of sporting royalty. And in the middle of it all, he sits down with LeBron. What comes out of his mouth next isn't about tactics or backhands or Sinner's rise. It's about something far more human. It's about the war that happens inside his head every single time he steps onto a court, alone. Djokovic describes tennis as an emotional roller coaster. Not metaphorically, literally. Imagine standing on a stage in front of thousands, with no teammate to lean on, no bench to sit on when it all goes wrong. Just you, your thoughts, your mistakes, nowhere to hide them. And here's the twist nobody talks about. Tennis, as a sport, demands elegance, composure, silence, even in agony. It's a sport built on tradition, on decorum, on that image of the perfectly poised competitor in white, gliding across grass like nothing could ever rattle them. But underneath that poise, a storm. Djokovic reveals the walls have started closing in, literally. Microphones now surround the court from every angle. Every grunt, every mutter, every crack in composure gets picked up, broadcast, dissected. There is nowhere left to release the pressure. So for years, he found a loophole, a secret weapon. He would let his frustration out, but in Serbian, a language most of the tennis world couldn't understand. A private release valve hidden in plain sight. Except that loophole is closing too. 2 decades on tour will do something to you. It turns you into a familiar face in every corner of the globe. And now Djokovic admits it feels like everyone has caught up, like his once secret language has been cracked. The umpires, the officials, the fans. It's as if the whole world learned Serbian just to catch him slipping. The result? Fines, warnings, public scrutiny for simply trying to survive the emotional chaos of his own sport. He admits it almost with a laugh, a bitter, knowing laugh, because what else can you do? He says sometimes you just need to get it out of your system, and you can't always control it. Now here's where the story pivots. Here's where LeBron James leans in and drops a bombshell that reframes everything. Because while Djokovic is out there alone, battling silence and surveillance and the crushing loneliness of individual combat, LeBron reveals a completely different universe. A universe of freedom, of chaos, of release. In the NBA, he explains there are no such chains. Players can say virtually anything on the floor. Trash talk flows like adrenaline. Curses fly. Emotions erupt in real time, and nobody bats an eye. It's not just tolerated. It's part of the fabric of the game itself. Stop and sit with that contrast for a second. 2 athletes, 2 legends, 2 completely different emotional prisons or emotional playgrounds, depending on which side of the net or which side of the arc you stand on. Djokovic fights in silence, censored, monitored, fined for the very human act of frustration. LeBron fights in noise, in fire, in words flying across hardwood with zero restriction. One sport polices the soul, the other lets it run wild, and maybe that's the real story here. Not tennis, not basketball, but the psychology of competition itself. How the rules of a game shape the way a human being is allowed to process pain, pressure, anger, and failure in front of millions of watching eyes. Djokovic didn't choose to be alone out there. The sport built it that way. No coach courtside, no teammate to share the burden. Just him, his racket, and a stadium of eyes waiting to see if he cracks. And when he does, even for a second, even in a language he thought was his secret, the system punishes him for being human. Meanwhile, LeBron thrives inside a sport that almost demands emotional volatility. Trash talk isn't just accepted, it's strategy. It's psychological warfare woven into the fabric of the game, where Djokovic gets fined for a curse muttered under his breath, an NBA player might get a crowd roaring for the exact same energy. So, what happens next for Djokovic? The story doesn't end at that conversation on the shop, because life on tour never pauses for reflection. Even now, as the echoes of that Wimbledon defeat still linger, a new battlefield is already looming on the horizon. The North American hardcourt swing is coming, and it's coming fast.